But rather than just this concept of dragging in a single image or text file into Express, we came up with the idea of, you drag folders or multiple images at once, create the boxes automatically, and then add some features. Do the boxes have drop shadows? Do they have labels for the name of the files? So for creating catalogs of images or proof sheets and setting how many rows and columns of images, it's very handy, and you just drag a folder and boom, 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 adds the pages as needed. So that's a nice tool. And it still does that. It's just we don't name it after the drag and drop functionality. QC is one of the most excellent programs that we've ever developed. It stands for quality control. It was our very, very innovative, ahead of the curve flight check approach, which was not flight checking at the last minute before it was sort of too late or a pain to correct something that you're releasing a document and you're checking it for errors. That's a little late. So we came up with this idea of more of a proactive pre-flight, if you will, for quality control. And it covers some other non-traditional quality control things. But since we're doing it within Express, we can do things like there's almost like a proofreader module that will go and look for punctuation errors and actually allow you to auto-correct those. And it can look for hidden items, things that are outside of your live area, stuff that a pre-flight program really wouldn't know or be able to do anything about, but we can because we're inside the software.
Well, then we might have talked about eyedropper.
Yeah, eyedropper's just, that's a missing feature. I consider some of the things, incidentally, are what I would call missing feature. Other ones are clever add-ons that, really almost don't make sense for Quark to add to the core product, because they're almost, I don't know. It's a strange line to determine, and I don't know how to do that. But not everything belongs as the core product, and some belong as these third-party little bursts of brilliance, if you will. And then, but something like eyedropper and a few of these other ones are just, they should have been features at some point or another. Certainly other programs have an eyedropper tool, and that was missing. So, instead of calling it IEYE, I called it the eyedropper with a little I because I saw it as an information dropper more than just a pure color-based tool or something like that. So it has two functions. One is to colorize and add colors to the Express palette. And on that front, we added some color theory there. Before Adobe came up with live color and all that, we had all of the harmony colors and the complementary color sets that you could add on automatically based on the color you chose. We're going to enhance those features in coming releases also. But basically the ability to add multiple colors at the same time, they're all harmonically adjusted based on warmer and cooler types of color theory and stuff like that. It's pretty handy. Or just the ability to eyedropper some color out of a photograph and get some text in that color. And then the other part of the eyedropper is getting styles from boxes and text, and then basically applying them to others. Paint bucketing them, if you will, into other objects. So eyedropper is kind of a cool tool, and will continue evolving also.
Well, it's funny. Eyedropper could almost be an Apple product these days, right? That's a very fortuitous pick by you. Instead of EYE dropper, it's
Yeah,
iDropper.
it was
iOS,
actually
an iPhone, an iPad.
That's right. It actually kind of existed before all of those products. So I guess it might have been a little ahead of the curve on that.
Trademark that? I mean, you never know when Apple's going to have a product that they're going to want to take iDropper away.
I've got a trademark on it already. So.
See, you're rolling.
Linkster is just one of those things, it's in there. It's one of those deals where you've gotten this document, it's 50 pages long, it's all linked text, and you would like to work on page 35 without upsetting the stuff that's perfect on page 25, so you can unlink that box, keeping the text in place, which traditionally you haven't been able to do. For some reason, it is tricky because there are different ways text can be unlinked. You can unlink the text so that it flows to the left and to the right, and this box is isolated, or you can have it flow around the box, or you can have it flow from the box on or to the box down. So we offer those options for unlinking a box and or unlinking an entire 50-page or whatever it is document. So it's very handy for a designer too. It makes the job easier.
Well, that kind of brings us back to the idea of extensions. All of those extensions are very different in, like you said, some you could use every day, some you can use once in a while, some are specifically targeted to a certain workflow maybe, or a certain environment that you have.
Some of them are just features that should have been in there, or that maybe, who knows, in the future, and that have been. And that has happened in the past. We've made extensions and they become features in Express later on down the line, and that's part of the reality of making extensions. Sometimes the ideas are either too obvious or too good to pass up for the core application. So, but that's fine. We don't mind driving that innovation of the overall industry. That's part of the fun of it.
Well, as they evolve, you evolve. Certainly there have been a lot of workflows in various disciplines that are really pegged to what you might have provided in a particular feature. Talk about that for a minute, just how dependent certain workflows can get on a specific functionality.
Well, yeah, extensions can be very elaborate programs in themselves, and just because they have that name of an extension, sometimes they're huge programs that offer tremendous amounts of advantage and automation that is very valuable in certain workflows. How valuable is it if I can lay out an entire magazine page or ad based on an Excel spreadsheet, for example? That's automating a process. Or, there are lots of types of automation that we've done. And certainly, as I mentioned, the ProScale, or did we talk about ProScale?
We haven't talked about ProScale.
Okay, well, ProScale is something that was one of the earliest products of ours. And as I had mentioned, that resizing ads was a common need. Now, ads tend to not resize proportionally. It would be pretty easy if you could just scale the thing proportionally, but a lot of the different sizes required for magazines and newspapers are non-proportional to each other. So taking the same content and putting it into a non-proportional new size could implicate or could imply squishing the type with horizontal scale and or doing the same to the graphics, and certainly you can't allow that for any kind of branded material where logos have to remain as they are. And certainly horizontal scaling on type is not really desired in many of the design cases. So we came up with this whole thing we called IntelliScale at the time, and it's basically a way of really keeping certain aspects proportional while the overall design is going non-proportional, and resizing not just single pages but many pages. One of my favorite uses is taking a 60-page pharmaceutical monograph and turning it into which is a large booklet, format booklet, and turning it into a Slim Jim, which is sort of like a pocket book of sorts of the same information, same exact information repurposed to another booklet of a narrow format. And using ProScale on that was cut that job way down. And certainly there are certain ads that run in many different magazines at different sizes. And a lot of designers tend to either just kind of float the designs in the different sizes of magazines and let it just kind of play where it falls. That's a very common technique. But that's actually not taking advantage of the full size of the space that's been purchased. If you spend $35,000 on a full-page ad, you better just use up that entire space properly with your design. So ProScale is what allows for that.
I think all of them, certainly for education customers, who can get it with Quark Express, it's all a tremendous value, like you said, just in terms of how much is really available in that package if you
If
combine them
not
together.
just to learn the thinking behind it, you know, I mean, in terms of an educational concept, when you're learning, you know, even if you're really a talented designer and you already know most of what you think you need to know, seeing what others have experienced over the years and put in there based on real world publishing knowledge and design experience, and with a lot of feedback. You know, even though these things were sort of either invented or started here at GLUON, the most important innovations have come from our customers, you know, over the years. So you're really inspecting a tremendous knowledge base when you look through these extensions. It represents a lot of knowledge, and that's what education's all about.